Good morning, good evening, good afternoon. It's the 27th of April, and I'm here at the Oak Hill Body and Paint, and this is the little Toyota pickup. So it does have some parts missing, if you notice. I'm missing the headlight, and looks like both directionals on either side, the grill, and of course the bumper area and the right fender. So there it is. There's nothing I can say about it. I talked to the gentleman inside, and he's trying to find parts. I mentioned aftermarket parts, but that didn't go. Tell you frankly, I can't even. I remember what he said about aftermarket parts. All my friends keep telling me about aftermarket parts should be just fine, and that's not the case. So I think what we're going to do is we're going to try to get some parts, and at some point I instructed him to just put it back together so it's legal. 2 headlights, 2 directionals, put the grill back on, and just make it drivable, even if it might look atrocious. So that's what we're gonna do. And so a little bit disappointing on the truck. These are the buildings on the left that are still under construction. I did an earlier presentation about this construction site, and they're coming along just fine. So that's the update on the truck at Oak Hill Body and Paint. Nothing can be done without parts. So as far as my transportation needs go, I guess I'm in quite a pickle. And cars today are very, very expensive. Even used cars are very, very expensive. There's no negotiations. I may have to look at alternative sources for transportation, and that'll be the end of that. So with that said, today in history, I've got a story for you. I've got a story for you, and I'll try to get through this as best and as accurately as I can. Today in 1865, the nation's worst maritime disaster took place. It's the worst. It's bigger. I think it's bigger than the Titanic. Don't get me wrong. Here I am, just starting off lying already. I don't know. The Titanic, I think, wasn't an American ship. So anyway, this is the biggest, the largest in the United States. Put it that way. And it happened in 1865. There was a gentleman named Captain Mason. And this happened right around the time that they caught John Wilkes Booth. So this incident was overshadowed by the killing or the suicide of John Wilkes Booth. At that time, all the telegraph wires were down during the Civil War. So Captain Mason got his ship together, his boat. Hello, sir. He got his boat together, and he wanted to get a bunch of newspapers, and he steamed. I'm gonna get run over here. he steamed his ship south to spread the news about Lincoln's assassin, and he steamed south with the ship, and the ship was called the Sultana, Sultana. It's a fascinating story. Google it, and you can get the particulars. Of course, I read it, and I'm just trying to give you the highlights. But it's a fascinating chain of events, human error, human greediness, bad actors, and it could be a movie. So Captain Mason takes his boat. It's a steam engine, coal-fired steam engine, 3 steam engines, double paddle boat. It's rated to hold about 376 passengers, 85 crew members, and that's about it. So it goes south all the way to New Orleans, spreading the news of the suicide or the killing of the assassin of Abraham Lincoln. And he gets to Vicksburg, New Orleans, and he meets this gentleman, this chief quartermaster, Captain Reuben Hatch. And Reuben Hatch is like every other political appointee. Hatch has friends and high as far as up as the president, Abraham Lincoln. He's known for his criminal conduct, his incompetence, and he's just a clown. Just like all political appointees, a lot of times they're unqualified. For the job. It would be like me being appointed Secretary of Defense, and I never even owned a gun. That's what it would be like. Never shot a gun, never owned a gun. Don't know which one end of the gun fires. And that's what it would be like. So he's a political appointee, a rather crooked one at that. They got about 1,500 prisoners of war, northern Union prisoners. This is after the end of the war, the Civil War, down there, down south in Georgia, Mississippi, Alabama, I don't know. They all gathered them up in a parole camp near New Orleans. And again, if I'm getting some of this information incorrect, you've got to look it up for yourself, and you'll see where I erred or I was correct. It's quite a lengthy little story, and I can't take all day long getting it just right. So Hatch tells them, we'll give you $2.75 per enlisted man, and we'll give you $8 per officer. I got 1,400 released or paroled prisoners of war, Union prisoners of war, and you got to give me a kickback. So Hatch Mason needs the money. The captain of the ship, he needs the money. He takes the bribe. He gives the kickback, and they overload this ship. Okay, they overloaded this ship to the tune of 70 paying passengers, 22 guards from Ohio, and 1,960 prisoners, and 85 crew members, for a total of, there's the church I cut through all the time. See, that goes out to the main road. For a total of 2,137 passengers on a double deck steamship that should only hold about 376. So the chain of events has started. And then by the time he gets down there, Captain Mason finds out he's got a split seam in one of the boilers. The boilers, there's 3 of them, and they're interchangeable, which means they're all connected. So when the ship leans left or right, the water leaves one of the boilers and enters the other middle or the other boiler, and then comes back. And they call those hot spots. And it was determined that they didn't have enough water in the boilers to stop those hot spots. So the temperature gets hotter than you would normally get if you had proper water levels in these boilers. So it's quite a long story, isn't it? I'm trying to get through it. So he's got a broken seam, a split seam, and he doesn't want to lose this pay and this money for these prisoners. If he takes 3 or 4 days to fix this seam properly, the paroled prisoners of the Civil War will take other means to get back up north. So he gets his mechanic to put a Mickey Mouse patch. And what a Mickey Mouse patch is Mickey Mouse is the term that contractors or carpenters use when things are not fixed properly, or they're fixed the cheapest way or the fastest way or the most incompetent way. So he does a quick repair, takes a day, uses insufficient thickness of metal to cover the bulge or the patch, gets his passengers on board, and there they go. Off they go. So he gets about 6 miles north of Tennessee. It doesn't help that these are the biggest spring rains. The Mississippi River has crested over its banks about 2 miles, maybe 3 miles. The water is so swift and so high, you can see the tops of trees only. Some of the survivors were found clinging to the tops of trees. And so with the insufficient repair, the swift current, the insufficient amount of water, the boilers blew up. First one, and then right after that, the other one and the other one. And it just decimated the ship. Both smokestacks fell down, crushing the deck on one side, falling down on the deck on the other side. There were so many passengers, it was so overweighted, they said you could hear the decks creaking. And what they did is they put beams below the top deck to support the top deck between the second deck. That's how overloaded this steamer was. And it blew the smithereens. And it was just devastating. Some people survived. Some people were killed in the explosion. Some people drowned in the water with hypothermia. Most of the passengers or the soldiers or the parolees were weak from their time in southern prison camps. It was just a debacle. It was, the prisoners were from Ohio, Michigan, Indiana, Kentucky, Tennessee, and Virginia. And after that, they had organizations like they did for the Titanic that they would meet every year, the survivors of this terrible maritime disaster. And they say the reason they got so many, the person who was loading the prisoners got his books mixed up. And they say they had an inaccurate they had an inaccurate, I'm going to make my way back up this hill. It's kind of an overcast day today. 14 minutes here, and I'm still babbling about this incident. But it's really a good read. If you can Google this and find out all the particulars, like I say, I'm kind of just brushing over it. But the gentleman who loaded the prisoners down south had an inaccurate count. He was mixed up. The books were mixed up. Other ship captains thought it was all because of bribes. And this incompetent Hatch had a lot to do with it. He never was prosecuted because he had such high friends in high office. They tried to subpoena him for the investigation. He refused to attend. He received letters from higher ups, even the president. So he got off scot-free and wasn't held accountable. Man, do I have a trouble with the English language or what? He was never held accountable. Captain Mason was killed in the explosion. Once the explosion blew out, it blew out the where they steer the boat. What do they call that? The bridge or something like that. I can't take time to write everything down, and then it becomes a classroom. Nobody wants a classroom. So anyway, so the boat had no steering, no cockpit, if you will, no driver's side steering wheel, and it just was adrift in high, swift moving water. And it just floated about 7 miles and sunk the next day, I think, 7 miles down. And they were picking up bodies for quite some time along the Mississippi. They rescued quite a number of people. You can do the math. Maybe 900 survivors. I don't know. Can it be that much? But it was quite an interesting. And that happened in 1865. But the whole event was overshadowed by the news of John Wilkes Booth capture or suicide, and didn't get a lot of play. But they had cemeteries that they built right around the area for the victims, and it was just I thought you'd find that interesting. 17 minutes and 21 seconds. So again, the name of the ship was the Sultana. Sultana, I think it's pronounced. 1865. So I guess the moral of the story is watch out for political appointees. Generally, they're shams. They're people who know somebody. They're a relative of somebody. They're a contributor to somebody's campaign. They're friends of people. Sometimes they're people who need to be kept quiet, so they're bought off with secure jobs with high-paying salaries. A lot of your board members on big major corporations are just people in name only. They serve no real purpose. They make no real decisions. They rubber stamp anything the CEO wants to do for fear that they'll lose their $500,000 a year job that they only have to show up 3 or 4 times a year at that most to sit in a nice comfortable leather chair and play big shot. So be careful, political appointees. They're as good as goldfish. You know what goldfish do? They defecate, they dirty the water, and then they continue to defecate and dirty the water all over again. So have a great day. It's Tuesday, going up this hill. Gonna go back up to my rented room and read the article again, and then realize how many things I left out. So have a great day. Over and out.